Hi, and welcome to another edition of the UNCAGED podcast. Mr. Dustin Smith, the Executive Director of Athletics, is my co-host. I'm Dan Hawk, and we've got a lot to get to with basketball. It's hard to believe that the season's already over for both of these teams. Both of them, in my heart, I believe they exceeded expectations in a lot of ways. I think the girls' team is going to be coming in with a heavy chip on their shoulder for this year. And the boys' team, I think it's going to have this attitude of like, okay, we've now done it. Now we got to finish the project.
Yeah, just a phenomenal year for the Round Ballers. Tiger Fieldhouse got to witness some pretty impressive basketball, and the new format of the 14 district games that they had to adjust to, and those games actually matter. That you've got to play well in those 14, and point differential matters, and that impacted how our girls got to be able to host, and that impacted obviously our boys, because you got to get your point totals to be able to host, and obviously wins and losses do matter, but your point totals matter. And so being able to know that going into games, and knowing, hey, we got to win by this much for this game, and this team doesn't need to win by this much, and so you start jockeying and figuring out what that really looks like, and watch standings and watch results, and we were able to be treated to some phenomenal basketball here, both here and on the road. Obviously, we played some tournaments. Boys won up in Bartlesville. Just the different tournaments throughout, one at Bishop Kelly, and just the success that both boys and girls had all year. It was fun to watch, fun to be part of. My maiden voyage with Coach Coffey and Coach Wallace. Really excited to see how they coached throughout the year, and how that translated. And we talked about with our wrestling programs, just the way that they're coached, the way that they're taught, and the way those athletes accept the coaching. And you saw flashes of brilliance. You look at Jalen Talley and how he played the last 6-7 games of the year, just was on a different level. DJ played all year at that level, but you see people grow into their roles and what that may be, whether that be Corbin Dow, whether that be Antoine Wallace,
Nigel Noyes for that.
For whoever that was that stepped in there. Then you look at the girls and how they progressed and how they started figuring out, okay, we play better as a team, and how they work individually to bring their efforts to the team, and how that benefited us. And it could be a different person step up each time. If Mackenzie's not scoring, then maybe Macy scores, or maybe Taryn scores, and maybe Rakaya scores, or maybe Peyton Dolan hits shots that I remember one game I looked at Peyton before the game and said, how many are we going to have? How many threes are we going to hit this game? And she said, let's go with 3. And she had 3 in the first quarter. Right. I mean, I was like, I set that bar a little bit too low, apparently. But just seeing their success, seeing them be able to host a regional, both the boys and the girls, and that's a lot of work. And I told the coaches that if you win and you win the regional, then that Saturday you're working. I'll work Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but if you win, then by Saturday you're going to be working and doing the things. And we were fortunate enough to host both boys and girls. Phenomenal year. Boys made a deep run into the state tournament, got the semifinals, got beat by the eventual champion,
Wallace Rams. Yeah,
and even in that game, didn't shoot like we did against Union. And if we make 3 more 3-pointers, we're right there. I mean, it's a 1-possession game. And we went 1 for 13, or 1 for 18, whatever it was from 3. A bad night to not shoot well from 3. But they had an incredible run. Our girls had an incredible run. We're a shot away from getting to overtime and potentially punching their ticket to the state tournament. So phenomenal year for both the boys and the girls.
I know that we'll discuss this with Coach Wallace later about, not playing the rivalries that we're accustomed to. And I know he has his own perspective on that. But you as an athletic director, I mean, ticket sales go up more when it's a rivalry that fans are used to. Would you like to see this maybe as a non-con game where we could still see these games on the schedule?
Well, I mean, you'd love to, but you're limited by the number of games that you're allowed at this point, where you can play 14 and 3 tournaments, or you can play 16 and 2. And so it really limits you. Your coaches want to play those 3 tournaments because that gives them an extra game at each tournament. So they want to play those tournaments, and you understand that. So we're really limited. You get those 14 district games, which are important, which determine your regional seed, which determines whether or not you get to play at home or you got to play on the road. And so the format is different. And there's discussions on whether that's going to be changed, whether we're going to increase the number of games that are allowed and take away the tournaments. Still can play the tournaments, it's just a matter of how you get to this point. And there's some heartburn about the districts, because it's difficult to go to a Choctaw on a Tuesday night.
Absolutely.
It's difficult for our kids. It's difficult for our fans.
And
likewise,
Ponca City for that matter.
Or
too.
Edmond going up to Bartlesville. I mean,
it's not just on our side. It's difficult for every team. Yeah.
And unless you physically move those towns, you're going to have travel, no matter where you're at. And because of the size of our schools and the size of 6A, and not all of them are centralized right here. I mean, there's 5 of them that are right here, but that doesn't mean, and you can throw Muskogee in that mix because they're just 30 minutes away, but it's not like it's across the state. Everybody is right here.
Right.
We're spread out. And so travel is going to be a part of it no matter what sport you play. So the district format made things a little bit different. I'd love to have Jinx and Union and Owasso and Bixby here every game, but that's just not the way the calendar breaks down. So you just make the most of the opportunities that you have. Would I love to see it? Yes. Did I like seeing Bixby 4 times this year? No.
Probably not. No.
Nothing against Bixby. It's just you want to see different teams.
Yeah.
And so we didn't see Owasso until we got to the state tournament. We didn't see Union until we got to the state tournament.
One thing that I didn't see being too much of an issue calling the games on Aerovision this year, the shot clock. But do you think we're going to get to that point eventually?
There's always discussion. And where I came from in Arkansas, they did a trial run with 6A to begin with, and then implemented it for everybody. And I could see that being the case. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I could see them trying to trial run it with some schools.
But overall, I don't think it was that big of a factor. I don't think there was a lot of teams that Broken Arrow played or opposing teams that played that they stalled with the ball. But I would like to see it picked up.
Well, and you saw last year in Oklahoma, there was a 4-2 basketball.
Correct.
And that was more of a statement to say, hey, we need
a shot clock. Correct.
And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it does change the way you coach. It does change the way that last minute goes, especially if it's a close basketball game. Does it change drastically? Probably not.
No.
But it's the thought process that, I'm constrained by this time on the shot clock. It happens at the collegiate level. It happens at the professional level. It's a matter of time before it will seep into every level. But right now, it's not something that we're dealing with. There are discussions, and I think it would be...
And it's always going to be a discussion, I'm assuming. It's always going to be on the top of the OSSA.
Until it happens, then it's going to be a point of discussion. Even when it happens, we gone to the district play, and there's been some complaints about the district play. But we wanted the district play. It's what the coaches wanted, and now there's complaints about the district play. We wanted a double elimination in the regional tournament. And then there were complaints about the double elimination for the regional tournament. So I think it's just our society. We're gonna complain about something that if it benefits us, we're okay with it. But if it doesn't, then we're gonna complain about it.
Final one for me, the new event center. Obviously, it's being used for wrestling and volleyball and some other activities as well. But this, to me, allows the field house to be just basketball. Tell me how that's going to elevate the sport of basketball that we see for Broken Arrow, because they don't have to deal with scheduling conflicts or anything like that. It's their arena.
Well, and it's still a space that will be used. I mean, the size of our campus alone, and our student body, we're going to have to use spaces, and there'll be spaces that'll be used. But knowing that that's basketball only, they don't have to take down goals to set up wrestling mats. They don't have to take down goals because of volleyball, and they won't have to schedule around volleyball in order to have practices in there or the Ox Gym. But there'll be other entities that are wanting to use that facility or that space, and I understand that. But for basketball to be able to have their sole location, that they're not having to share that with anybody else, will be big for them, will be big for our coaches, and be big for our kids to just say, and we're blessed here at BA to be able to do that. So we're fortunate to not have to share that with another sport now. Just an incredible benefit and incredible blessing for BA students to be able to say, that's the home for basketball. This is going to be home for volleyball and wrestling and cheer. And we got a football stadium that's football only. We got baseball and softball that don't have to share. Soccer's got their own complex. Tennis has their complex.
And soon swimming will have their own complex.
We're working towards that as well. So there's a lot on the horizon, obviously, but I'm excited to see the field house be used for basketball. And I know our coaches are going to be excited about that.
Absolutely. Well, Dustin will be joined by head coach Beau Wallace coming up in just a little bit on the UNCAGED podcast. So stay with us on the other side.
Your side hustle keeps you moving. We'll help you get where you really want to go. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
Tulsa Bone and Joint, Northeast Oklahoma's sports medicine experts. We are pleased to help you and the athletes in your life with a number of surgical and non-surgical options. Tulsa Bone and Joint is proud to serve as team orthopedist for local high schools such as Broken Arrow, Owasso, Sapulpa, Cascia Hall, and Bishop Kelly. We're also proud to be team orthopedist for FC Tulsa. Tulsa Bone and Joint, moving life forward.
And welcome back to the Uncaged podcast. We're joined by District Coach of the Year, Beau Wallace.
Appreciate you having me on.
Mr. Humility, he's going to throw it out there.
Yeah, he's just going to throw it right back at us right there. This season, from where it started to where it finished, tell me about the growth of this year. It's hard to believe the basketball season's over, but I know your mindset is still focused on it. Just tell me how this year went for you.
Well, I mean, I always expect to get there. I wasn't for sure how quickly this group would gel and get it together, because I think they're a talented group. I told people, and I told the group last year, like, I think this group overall is more talented as far as basketball skill set, doing different things as far as how many people we had that we could help us contribute on the floor. But just the experience was a big thing, and sometimes in those games, in those moments, those big moments, is that experience matters at the end of the day. So I was excited to see that. I think in the beginning of the year, I remember huddling our team together going, this is our team, guys. We're just going to live with this. And, I think the Ponca City game, I was really frustrated, even though we won by 20-something, just we didn't play well. And so just to see their growth and how much they just kept believing in what we're doing. And I told them, I said, in 3 years, we're 66-18 with this group. And, that's what a program is supposed to do, and not just having good individual players, but developing our kids over the time.
When you talk about building a program and what that looks like, it's not 1 year, it's not one team, and got to the finals last year, obviously, and made a deep run this year. And let's talk about that for just a moment. When we have a different format, you go to different district competition this year, and what that looks like as far as regionals and what that looks like for area. And so we were fortunate enough, because your body of work was so good during the year, that we get to host regionals. And then you run into Edmond Memorial here, and then have to go on the road and earn your spot to get to area, and what that looks like. So let's talk about just how that district format changed things for you and your approach as a coaching staff trying to navigate those waters.
Well, I think the first thing it changed is you got to win by so many points, which sometimes you don't like that because you want to get guys in, especially late in the game, but you're always trying to think about that plus 15 just to make sure that you're in that standing. And then I think it was a little nerve-wracking because it had been the first year that we had never got out of regionals had we not taken care of business, because they added an extra game. So you win that first game, next week I'm playing, and then you had to go play again after not taking care of business against Ed Memorial, which, they did a really good job, and I thought our kids played really, really well. We just didn't finish the game. So I like the district format. I like, playing some different teams and having to travel and having to figure some of that stuff out. I wish it obviously was 2 years so that we knew, hey, we're playing these guys again, and can kind of scout for that and even schedule for that. But I like the format and that every game mattered.
Well, and it's not like Edmond Memorial was any slouch of a team. I mean, they were in the state semifinals too. So they were on the opposite side of the bracket from us in the state tournament. But they were a good team. Absolutely. It's not taking anything away from them. Absolutely. I mean, they had some quality players that, and their system is so good, and they're so disciplined in what they do. But you expect that. You expect that in a region. It's just so weird that you see them in a regional team that's going to be in the state semifinal. Of course, you couldn't forecast it then,
right? But
they had to go take care of business in the area so that they could be in the state tournament as well, which they did. But hosting the regional, big deal for us to be able to host both boys and girls, and we'll talk to Coach Coffey about that as well. But what's the advantage of being able to host regionals here, knowing that, hey, your kids get to sleep in their own beds and play here?
Exactly that. It's just being here, not having to break up their routine. I'm big on that as much as we can practice at the same time, liking that, and not having to get them up earlier or travel and all that other stuff. So and then playing at home and having your home crowd and just things that they know. So anytime we can host is always a great thing for us.
The one thing I have to ask about the new district setup is some teams we don't get to see on the court, Wassos and the Unions. Do you like the fact that we're seeing other teams, or do you miss that, rivalry game that we have with the teams that are within the Tulsa Metro?
I mean, the honest answer is it depends on the year.
Sure, of course.
There's sometimes you're like, yeah, I don't really care if I see that team, but I do think that it's one of those things, having those rivalries and being able to see a Union and an Owasso and Sand Springs in the same year. And I know we've actually started talking about adding more games so that you can play your district games and then still get some of those rivalries if you want to. So I think that'll be good. But I like seeing other teams. I like going to Choctaw. It's something different. And going to Southmore and Ponca City. Ponca City and Stillwater were teams that I played when we were here. So that was in our conference. So for me, it kind of brought back like, oh, yeah, I remember these road trips to a point. But, yeah, I mean, it's nice both ways.
Well, on the flip side of that, you saw Bixby 4 times, and you end up playing Jinx 3 times. And so you saw some teams that you got a lot of familiarity with them, and a lot of basketball coaches will tell you it's hard to beat somebody 3 times in 1 year. And that's difficult, especially with the regional format, when they may be paired with us in the regional and or the area where you have to beat them in order to go to the state tournament. So there are some sides where you don't get to see some people, but you do see an overabundance of some teams, and Bixby was one of those this year.
Well, and we did that with Owasso last year. We played them 2 in the regular season, and then 1 in the playoffs, and then 1 in the state tournament. So we saw them 4 times as well, and end up with 3-1 record against them. So it just is what it is.
Well, let's talk about the run that we made into the state tournament. And, you go down as a 7th seed because they reseed that as you go in. And so you're the 7th seed playing a Union team that caused a lot of people some problems. Actually beat Owasso. They caused people some problems. And it starts with their big kid inside.
Yeah.
I mean, when you got a 7-foot kid in there, we don't have one of those. And so what you've got to do to go into that basketball game knowing, okay, we're the lower seed. People are probably predicting us not to win that basketball game, but we shoot the ball really well that night for sure. Absolutely. We shoot the ball really, really well, and they really had no answers. Come out of halftime, it was a relatively close game at halftime, and then that third quarter, we erupted and they did not. And you were able to cruise in that first round game. Talk about that game with Union just a little bit and what that was like from your perspective.
Well, I think we even started kind of the mindset a couple weeks before that is no one expects us to win. When we lose the guys that we lost, they just kind of wrote us off a little bit. And so our kids just kind of, I think that fueled them a little bit as far as going into games. And then, and I told our kids, I said in the last, I think it's 5 years that Union has beat us once in those 5 years. So I know they didn't want to be the team that said, hey, you know what, Union finally got us. But our kids, I think the biggest thing on that is you got to make shots. And then we felt like we had some advantages, especially with, even though Madrid was so big, that if we could keep him out of the paint as much as we could or make those shots difficult for him, that on the defensive end, we were going to make him have to really work and guard some ball screens and some space. And we got to play him a little bit this summer, and they beat us up this summer. We didn't play very well. We didn't have DJ and Diego, but it was one of those things that we shot the ball really well, but I thought our kids followed the scouting report and kind of did some of the things that we want to do and get them in some situations. And I don't think they shot the ball very well. One of their point guard, Gunn, I don't think he scored at all. And then Dalen really didn't take any. But I thought a lot of that it goes back to experience. And I told our kids, like, we've been here. They haven't. And I think that was the first time they made the state tournament in 4 years or something like that. So we kind of try to play that mental game with them as saying, hey, you guys have been here, you know what this is going to be like, and our kids came out and just executed.
So you're not telling me it's superior coaching? It was their kids did what they were supposed to do?
I mean, it's always the kids.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Beau, before we get you out of here, just tell me about the future of Broken Arrow basketball, on how you feel it's heading moving forward, because obviously we're going to lose a couple seniors out of this mix, but a lot of your core is still back there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the future is bright. I really like our group that's coming back. We've got 6 or 7 guys that played a lot of minutes that are all going to be back. We've got 6 seniors that all of them could start. And we brought them up as freshmen. So they've been in our program now. Next year will be 4 years that they've been at the high school level as far as practicing with us and all that. And then we've got some young guys that I think are going to come in, and Corbin keeps getting better as well. So I like where we are. Obviously, if we can find another big that kind of help us inside that just wants to play the big, that will help us out as well. So hopefully, you never know what happens in the next few months. So we'll see.
Well, in the Wild Wild West, that is the one-time transfer that people get, and you never know what ends up happening.
Move-ins and so forth.
Move-outs, move-ins,
Right.
whatever it may be. But you did mention a good core group, and DJ was Player of the Year, and he really carried us for a lot of the year and drew a lot of attention from the other team. Obviously, they're going to find out we're going to guard him, and we're going to try to do what we can to take him out. Much like on the girls' side, when they look at McKenzie, they may run a box and one, or they may shadow him to keep him from getting the basketball, or make it difficult for him to get the basketball. But I think DJ adjusted to that as the year went on. And once we got to the state playoffs, that's where I liked it, because I told him to let that hair eat one time, and he did it, and we made it to the semifinals. So he may need to do it all year. But you've got big pieces that are coming back that I think will be, again, a lot of teams' experience is big, but they've been to the finals and the semifinals back-to-back years. You can't put a price tag on that.
No, definitely. And I think, the good thing with us is, everybody worries about DJ, but Tally's playing really good. Anton had started playing really good, especially defensively. I think getting Devon back is going to be huge for us. Another guy that stretches the floor. Logan, Corbin, Nija, you can just go on and on with
the list goes on, right?
So, we've never had a guy that just had to average 25 for us to be good.
Right.
And, there's a lot of teams that do that. We've got a lot of guys that can be in that 10, 12, 15 range. And now it's a lot harder to guard when we do things that way.
We'll be joined by head coach Shane Coffey on the women's side coming up in just a little bit. Stay with us. You're listening to the UNCAGED podcast.
For families who like to build their wealth while staying liquid, we have flexible rate CDs to keep your funds working hard, even when you're not. First National Bank of Broken Arrow. The right balance.
At Ascension St. John, you'll find advanced heart care, brain and spine care, and personalized cancer care. And we excel just as much in the things that can't be measured. Listening more closely, caring more compassionately.
Life happens in a hurry. Our money experts will help you keep up. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
And welcome back to the UNCAGED podcast. I'm Dan Hawk, joined by my co-host, Mr. Dustin Smith, Executive Director of Athletics. And now we're joined by head coach of the girls basketball program, Mr. Shane Coffey. Coach, it's been a little while since we visited with one another.
I know, but it's always a good time.
It is always a good time. Basketball season obviously has finished, but there's so much optimism about this team moving ahead. But let's first start off about how this year went, what you were able to get out of the girls, what you wanted to be different with the team. Break it down for us.
This year was a team full, or a year full of just various things that happened. I think our team dealt with a lot of adversity, over the course of this year, whether it was injuries, whether it was sickness. It took us, and I think I told you late in the year that we had played 6 games where we were 100% healthy and never really were able to kind of get to that point where we were clicking, in full motor mode that we wanted to be. But our kids, what I loved about them is they were gritty. They continued to come to practice every day, and they knew that things may change from day to day and schemes and all this, but they kept doing the things that we needed to do. And that's what championship caliber teams do. And that was something that has always been a goal, in this program. And our standard is to be a state tournament team every year. Our goal is to be a team that's contending for state championships. And we were considered one of the elite teams this year. And unfortunately, at the very tail end of the year, we just didn't have the steam to finish out the year for whatever reason it might be. But I feel like our team has really learned a lot from that and has valued the importance of every opportunity that you get. You've got to step up. And we were already in or regular season practices here, after season, I should say, doing our stuff and trying to get better, working on our weaknesses as we get moving forward into the summer.
Well, Coach, let's look at the end of the season. I'll say the end of the season. We hosted regionals, and you win the regionals, and in spite of the athletic director not having the plaque for you when we won it, we did find it afterwards, and that wasn't the same. But we did get that. But we were able to host the regional. Big to be able to play at home. How important is it to play in front of your own fans and in front of your own the familiarity of the field house that you're used to?
To start off with, as a coach, I've been fortunate to coach a lot of teams that have won a lot of regional championships, and that was a first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here. It's my first year, so I appreciate that.
With that, that was one of our ultimate goals this year, was to be able to host. We have such an incredible community, incredible support day in and day out from our fans and from the people that just love, Broken Arrow, in general. And I felt like getting the opportunity to play on a home court 2 more games over the course of the season is a reward for our kids, and it's a reward for our community, in general. And I felt like our kids stepped up, late whenever they needed to. I mean, we played a really tight ball game against a really good team in Sand Springs who made the state tournament going in the back door. But we were able to beat them on that given Saturday, but it took some late second tactics to be able to pull that off, but it was a great win for us.
It was an incredible environment, and just getting to see that level of basketball, both boys and girls being able to host is huge for our schools, huge for our community. But then you go on to the area tournament, and we go over to East Central and we play there in that first round game. Just didn't make shots. And basketball's a finicky game because it's simple. And I always kid you before every game. I'll tell you that you score one more than them, you win every time.
Yep.
I mean, you don't lose that game if you score one more than them. But shots just weren't falling over there.
Yeah, no, you're right. They weren't. And, you go into a game of that magnitude, every possession matters. And, one of the things I think our team has learned this year is the importance of defensive possessions, because you've got to be able to control the controllables. And like you said, some nights you're not going to be able to knock shots down on a consistent basis, but you can control your effort. You can control the things that we need to do defensively. And, in that given game, even though we didn't shoot the ball very well, we were right in it to the very end. And that's the one frustrating thing that's about it. But there were some key moments that, they got an open 3 that kind of got some momentum going for them there late. And our kids tried to fight back, but then we gave up an easy backdoor layup. And you're just like, those little things matter, and I feel like, for our team moving forward, they've learned from that, and they know that they've got to value those possessions, particularly in big games.
Well, in the consolation game, you advance and play a familiar face, and you talk about. I'll bring out Peyton Dolan and what she did, especially in that regional game where she knocked down a huge 3. And then in the Bixby game, she has another look that's spot on. I was right behind her, and I saw it. I was above her where we were seated in the stands, and that shot was right on. It just hit the back of the iron and bounced off. But you had some great contributions from a lot of different people. And Mackenzie Mathern will get all the headlines and draw a lot of the attention, but you had a lot of different pieces that were incredibly valuable. You can talk about Taryn, you can talk about Peyton, you can talk about Rakaya, you can talk about Macy. I mean, you can go down the list and there's a lot of people that contributed and got us to that point. And we were that close against Bixby from advancing to the state tournament. So talk about that game just a little bit and just the conclusion of the season.
Yeah, going into that game, I knew it was going to be a dogfight. Our kids know their kids really well. They know us really well. They're well coached. But for us, we came out just a little kind of, I don't know if the right word is, just like dazed to an extent for about the first, quarter and about 2 minutes. And then all of a sudden we started to figure some things out and did things the way we know we want to play, as a Broken Arrow Tiger. But, we got down, I think in the third quarter it was 15. And I had called a timeout, and we had talked about, the things that we've got to do to try to be able to get back in this game, and kind of broke it down into minute segments. Said we want to be down by such and such by this point. Then let's be down by such and such by this point. And the kids, they're acknowledging all this. And that's something that I feel like we were blessed with the veteran squad. They understood that the game was not out of reach.
Yeah, turning a negative into a positive.
Exactly. And, we were able to kind of get that thing going. And once we got rolling and we started playing with a little more intensity, we erased that 15-point deficit. And like you said, that shot with, I think it was like 7 seconds to play by Peyton Dolan, I thought it was in too. And if we would have done that, we'd have been up 1. And, you put all the pressure on them, and we've made this big run on them. They don't know. I don't think they can come back from it. But what I love about it is the fact that we were able to get a rebound off that shot, called a timeout. We still had time to be able to go attack. We could pick a foul up, and we go to the free throw line with a really good free throw shooter. All she got to do is make both, and we're going to overtime. And she missed both of them, and that was one of the things you're just like, that's unfortunate, but the ball bounces a certain way night in and night out, and you just got to roll with it. But our kids never gave up. We fouled. They went to the free throw line, had an opportunity, missed the first one, made the second. 3-point ball game with, I think it was like 3 seconds left to play or something. And Mackenzie drove the length of the floor and was able to have a 3-point shot that rimmed in and out. And I thought it was going in too.
Yeah.
And
Off the backboard and then back, I thought it was going in. But
exactly.
But I think the impressive thing is you mentioned a veteran squad, but you don't graduate a lot. I mean, it's still veteran just because of the amount of minutes they've played and the amount of time that they've been actually on the floor. And any coach will tell you that floor time is very important. Mm-hmm. And you can look through the NCAA tournament that's going on right now, and Caitlin Clark is getting all this publicity and all this fame, and she should. She's scored more than anybody ever in the history of the game. But there's a lot of pieces that help Iowa be successful. It's not just Caitlin Clark, and they can try to shut her down. And you and I have talked about it several times. I see a lot of Mackenzie Mathurin in Caitlin Clark, and just the way that she draws attention and she draws a focus. So you've got a veteran team that's returning a lot of pieces for next year. Talk about the optimism looking into next year.
So excited, and the hunger in the gym already is just very evident daily. We're already doing our off-season workouts, and these kids are they're working on their weaknesses right now. And that's been a big focus of us. We want to make sure that we're stronger than we were a year ago. We felt like we were an elite team this past season, but putting our best foot forward and moving on, knowing that next year, this junior class, they've been working for this moment to win a gold ball, and they know that this is their last opportunity. They're doing the little things that are needed. But, what I've loved about this past season, too, was watching some of our freshmen grow. Janaea McCrary, that was a point guard. She's just gotten better and better. And Soraya Matthew late in the year just kept getting better and better. So, like you said, the minutes that kids get, it just makes you that much more of a veteran squad. And knowing that we're going to be senior laden next year, you still got these young kids that are getting those minutes too, so that we don't lose a lot of that. They know what it's like to win games when it matters most.
And they're not shocked when they get out on the floor. I think that's the big thing, especially for young kids, to figure out the pace of the game, to figure out just how quick some of those girls are. And you can talk about it all you want to in practice, but until they actually get on the floor in those game experiences, they won't be shocked when that time comes, when their number's called and they're put into the limelight for potentially a Peyton Dolan-like shot, where you got to make a shot, or you have the courage to just take the shot. Forget making it, just being able to take that shot. And Peyton, there were so many times that she's made that shot in practice or taken that shot in practice, and it translated to the game for her.
And that's one of the things, you're talking about Peyton, a year ago, you weren't here, but she was very hesitant to do those things. And it's always great as a coach to watch your kids grow, on and off the court, from skill set to how they handle people, relationships, all of those things. So, yeah, those shots that she took this year, she felt confident. She knew she could do it, but it was all based off of reps that she's had through the course of the past year and a half.
Well, you have my word. The regional championship plaque will not be an issue moving forward. That will be presented moving forward. So
I just got to end it with this with you. Is this team that is going to be on the court this next year, is it one of the most dedicated teams that you've had? You've been coaching a long time. It seems like every piece that's on the court can bring something to the table.
Yeah, I think we have a very dynamic group. I've talked to some people before about an alpha dog mentality, and we've got a couple of those alpha dogs, which I think you need to be a championship caliber team, which I think is a plus for our program right now. Their dedication is through the roof. I was talking to Dr. Smith the other day. It was during spring break, and we've got kids that were already in the gym. He's like, "You need to go home." I'm like, "Well, I've got kids coming up to shoot," and that's a good thing. You want that problem as a coach, and their dedication is to another level. They want to leave this place better than it was before they got here. And that's something that as a coach you want to be able to see. And that's exciting, definitely exciting for the future.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun for sure, Dustin.
Well, and you look at just the growth of the team throughout the year. And you mentioned it, only 6 games when you were completely healthy, without an injury, without something that, whether that be concussion, whether that be somebody with a bum ankle, or sickness or whatever it may be. And even playing down the stretch when Taryn was really playing her best basketball, got the flu, and then the wrong time for her to get the flu. Not that it's a good time ever, but her minutes inside were huge for us throughout the year. And so whenever she's not 100%, then our team is different.
Right.
And so I enjoyed watching the growth of the team as the year went on. And we joked about it a lot of times. If this team gets rolling, there's a lot of teams that do not want to play us because of the success that we can have. And I mean, I don't know who you shut down. I mean, you obviously will target Kinsey, but we had other players that stepped up. Rakaya played phenomenal this year. Macy played incredible stretches, and she was just a real rock for you at the point guard position. And then whenever she had to come out with foul trouble, hey, we had a freshman thrown into the limelight, and she was able to carry the load and do what she needed to do and adjust to the speed of the game and play. So it was exciting for me just to watch the growth of the team as the year went on. Even though I fumbled the ball late and didn't present the plaque when I should have, but we found it immediately after the game, and he was in his coach's office, and he said, "If that's that dang trophy,
you're late."
Yeah. So I tried to present it to him, but man, just incredibly proud of what the job Coach Coffey did, and incredibly proud of our kids and how they represented BA throughout the year, not just in the regional tournament, not just an area tournament, but from November on, when they put their floor or their shoes on the basketball floor, they represented BA in a phenomenal way.
Well, Coach Coffey, we appreciate you stopping on the Uncaged podcast. We'd also like to thank head coach Beau Wallace for stopping by as well. For Dustin Smith and myself, until next time, stay with us on the Uncaged podcast. Go Tigers.